folks. Like I said earlier, welcome to Module 4 of Woke's CannaCareers. We are going to be talking about manufacturing. This specific session, we're going to be focusing on the infusion part of manufacturing, and we're going to discuss what that means a little bit later. First, I would like to introduce Shaloma Wagstaff, who is the leader of Women of Color in Cannabis. If Shaloma would mind introducing herself and our organization.
Yes. Thank you, Sammy. So hello, everyone. Once again, thank you for joining us, giving us a slice of your Saturday. It means the world to us. We're so excited to arm you guys with information because that is what we do. So Women of Color in Cannabis, pronounced woke, so W-A-K-E. We're founded in Brooklyn, New York. My partner, Pat, is also here, but she's having some technical difficulties, but she is here with us. We started this goal in like 2018 when we really decided that we wanted to create safe spaces in New York City for women of color, for people of color, for disadvantaged groups to learn information, to not feel stigmatized, to not feel, insecure if we didn't know the terminology and the entire, seed to sale process, but still getting and providing information to people. So we started this in 2018, and Samantha joined us. I think it's been 2 years now, Sammy. We've been doing this thing together. We launched CannaCareers in 2020, January 2020 to be exact. In the midst of COVID, we thought people have a lot of free time, and a lot of people, unfortunately, have lost employment. So this is the perfect opportunity to capitalize on free time and energy, right? And to really increase a skill set, learn a new skill set, or learn about how you can transfer all of the amazing skills you've developed in your lifetime into cannabis, if that's what you wanted to do. So we partnered with wonderful female-forward, female-facing organizations such as TSC Staffing, with Danielle, a joint venture and company with Anne, and another partner who unfortunately could not make it today, Ashley Boucher of Quality Control Analytics. So we're just trying to provide you guys a one-stop shop of all the employment resources you need. So we have office hours where you can review your resume. With Danielle, we're also onboarding some people of color who can also review your resumes as well. We also have our job board, which we're working on, and it's taking a while because we're seriously vetting every company that wants to apply, because we mean it when we say safe spaces. We do Canna sessions, we do a lot, but what we're here for today is to talk all about manufacturing. And once again, shout outs to Amber and Joy. They are powerhouses in the cannabis field. They have done so much. For example, Amber being a part of a social organization out in Oakland, California, who have done great things and provide a pathway for so many disenfranchised and victims of the war on drugs to actually get into cannabis legally. So shout outs to her. Joy is the CEO of a Hollingsworth company, but she's making sure that they're doing right by people of color while making sure they're still, a profit generating company, because those two things shouldn't be mutually exclusive. So I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let Amber introduce herself some more in detail if she'd like to do so, as well as Joy. And if I haven't mentioned, Samantha is our operations lead. She's the lady who makes sure everything runs smoothly in the background, because if it was up to me and Pat, you wouldn't see us, you wouldn't hear us. We don't know how to work any of this fun stuff. So thank you, Sammy, for everything you continue to do for us. And I'm going to let Amber and Joy do their intros for you all.
Thank you, Lo. And thank you, Woke, for having me here today. My name is Amber Center. I live in Oakland, California. I'm a CEO of Breeze Distro. We're a manufacturer and distributor headquartered in Oakland. We have operations throughout the state of California. And we do a number of different things. We manufacture infused cannabis products. We distribute them to licensed retailers, and we also manage and operate the first shared manufacturing facility that's been funded by social equity dollars. So it's called Equity Works Incubator. We have 6 social equity operators that operate out of there, and we've been working with them to develop products and then bring them to the regulated market. I'm also co-founder and executive director of Supernova Women, and we're founded in 2015. We're a group of Black and Brown women that works to empower Black and Brown people to become self-sufficient shareholders and really just to create opportunities and lower barriers of entry for Black and brown folks in cannabis. We worked with the city of Oakland and San Francisco to develop the first and the second social equity programs in the country. So we're very centered around social equity. We worked with Senator Stephen Bradford's office to create SB 1294, which is a fund that funds all the local social equity programs throughout the state of California. So we work really hard to ensure that everything we're doing is creating opportunities for our communities. And we also run a workforce development program, which is first of its kind in the country. We actually run it out of Equity Works Incubator. And we actually partnered with Danielle on that from THC Staffing.
You were also listed as an external resource on our CannaCareers page.
Yes. And what we've been doing is recruiting social equity workers and training them on manufacturing. So this is really exciting to be a part of this module because I can kind of talk about a few things, not just being a manufacturer, but also training operators on manufacturing as well as workers in the workforce, and just helping folks prepare to have a successful career in manufacturing. So really, really excited to be a part of this today. And thank you, Woke, for inviting me to be a part of this today.
Thank you, Amber. Joy, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and about Hollingsworth and your experience in manufacturing?
Absolutely. Thank you so much to Woke. So happy to be sharing the stage with Amber. Big fan of Breeze Dish and Supernova Women, and have watched her grow and just like really own the game, and so excited to be sharing the stage with Amber. My name is Joy Hollingsworth. I am from Seattle, Washington, born and raised. I'm the COO of the Hollingsworth Company, which consists of 4 different entities. One most notably being our cannabis company located here in Shelton, Washington. And we are a tier 3, which is 30,000 square feet producer processor here in Washington State. So we cultivate, also manufacture and distribute different cannabis products throughout the state of Washington. We also have our hemp company. That's my dog in the background, Santana. I apologize. And if I have to put it on mute to go tell him to stop, I will. I was not expecting that. So we have our hemp company as well, which is we cultivate, manufacture as well, and distribute to people online, direct to consumer, and in retail stores. We also, I'm gonna let him outside right now. I have to put it on mute, and I apologize. This is really embarrassing. I know we're filming. My apologies. I have to put it on mute to let him out. My fault.
Do not be embarrassed. I just want to say that.
All good. You know? Yeah, you were all good. We're all trying to figure out how to work from home. We're all still figuring it out. It's okay. In the meantime, while we wait for Joy to return, I can introduce myself. Oh, well, never mind. There she is.
Thank you. That was the fastest I ran. I'm sorry.
We appreciate it. Thank you. But you didn't have to.
Yeah, look, he's 8 months. I got a pandemic puppy, and he's been the best thing ever. He's my mental health break. I embrace the distraction, but he can be a distraction for others. So we have our Hollingsworth Hemp Company, which we manufacture, distribute direct to consumer and wholesale to retail stores. We also have our consulting business, where we have recently been instrumental in trying to help shape social equity here in Washington State with House Bill 2870, which was passed last year in March, and this year House Bill 1443, which was a cleanup bill for social equity, and trying to expand, getting more people, BIPOC communities in the cannabis sector, but also redirect those tax dollars, restorative justice into the communities that were most harmed by the war on drugs, because we're the highest tax state in the country. So, obviously trying to redirect those tax dollars, whether it's food insecurity, housing, small business, or digital equity. Very important to us. And so have been doing this for the last 7 years, and looking forward to having a conversation with everyone today.
Thank you so much, Joy and Amber. As you guys can clearly see, they're both very, very extensively involved in the cannabis industry, and I'm very excited to speak with these two experts in manufacturing and learn what they have to share with us. So let's get started. Today, we're going to be covering these three topics. Specifically, like I said in the beginning, we're going to be talking about infusion. The infusion side of manufacturing is just one of two possible, I guess, legs, if you want to call them. There is the extraction part, which is actually extracting the oil from the cannabis flower itself that we grow from the ground. Infusion is infusing edibles and topicals with cannabis oils. So the latter is what we're going to be covering today. We're going to be talking about the possible career opportunities on this side of manufacturing, what that career trajectory looks like, and what the different kinds of skill sets and expectations you'll have on the job, as well as qualifications. Okay, so these are the types of manufacturing jobs that we have available. There's the production associate, the packaging associate, the production supervisor, and the director of production. We're going to go over each of these individually as we go along, and Amber and Joy will be sharing with us their experience here with these roles. General expectations for manufacturing in general, you have to be 21. You have to submit to a background check. This role in the cannabis industry is a little bit more physical than a lot of the other roles. There is often the need to lift heavy machinery. Amber and Joy, feel free to chime in here. There's often a need to, not lift, but use heavy machinery, maybe lifting things that are in excess or around 50 pounds. Bending, standing, and sitting for extended periods of time is also expected here. It's also possible that you'll need to work with chemicals for the extraction process. Is there anything else in terms of general expectations that that folks should know?
Yeah, it depends on, I guess, what part of the manufacturing and processing part that you're working in, but sometimes you might have to climb up things, go up staircases and things like that. So for instance, if you're working in packaging, some of these bigger packaging lines and sorting machines of cannabis, you have to kind of go up some stairs and you'll be standing on a platform, and it's a big machine that sorts out all the cannabis. So I'm just saying that to let folks know who might be have some disabilities and things like that. Like there are some positions in manufacturing that require climbing upstairs and things of that nature.
Okay, Joy, any other general expectations you think folks should know before considering a career in manufacturing?
No, I think Amber made a good point that you know, definitely some of those machinery, especially if they're a joint machine, you know, that you have to walk up stairs and so forth like that. So if you're not able-bodied, you know, there's some things that you need to be cognizant about.
Well, can I ask what a joint machine is? Sorry.
No, absolutely. A pre so very similar to how they decipher and package, you know, the nugs and the cannabis thing. They also have these massive joint machines where you actually have to load the machine with the paper joints, grind the material within the machine. It has like these massive grinders, and they actually go ahead and pack the different joints as they move along a line. Very similar to if anyone's seen a tobacco manufacturer, right, where they have all these different types of machines and so forth. And I've seen about 4 of them, and I've seen one in person that's actually pretty cool. And you actually have to walk up some type of stairs, just like 3 stairs, to be able to pour some of the ground source material into that machine for it to pack those joints.
Very cool. I wish I had one of those at home. Alrighty, so we're going to start with the production assistant, which, as I understand it, is the entry level position if we're starting our career in manufacturing. So Joy had just mentioned the joint machine. They're also manufacturing. There's also the manufacturing of edibles, of non-edibles like topicals and the creams and the rubs and the stuff that we use. Some of the duties will also include identifying and using proper PPE while operating, operating equipment, and the standard operating procedures for using that equipment and actually manufacturing the goods, cleaning the equipment in the facility, documenting and maintaining records. So this stuff is the compliance stuff, right? The safety standards and all that. Amber, looks like you wanted to chime in.
For this, you'll most likely have to also get a food handler certificate, just because in particular, if you're working with edibles, but even my employees that don't work with edibles, we still have them get a food handler certificate. We have 2 facilities and people will be bouncing back and forth between each other. One is edibles, one is not edibles. And I just want to make sure that people understand proper sanitation and handling of food. And, you know, cannabis is kind of treated very similarly to food here in California.
Because it's a product for consumption, right?
Yeah, so just like to make sure that people understand some of the best practices in handling food and cannabis.
It also kind of sounds like it's possible that if you are beginning your trajectory as somebody who's working in manufacturing of cannabis, that you will have to toe the line between, or be flexible at least enough to be able to manufacture across the product line, right? So you'll need to know both like the edibles and non-edibles manufacturing process, correct?
Yeah, and really just to be kind of very flexible in that field, you'd want to know both and be able to be versatile anyway.
What kind of safety standards, like compliance stuff, do folks need to know as a production assistant? And also, what kinds of equipment can we expect besides, let's say, the joint roller, to encounter if we are a production assistant?
Definitely scales. Scale is going to be your best friend and probably the thing you use the most. It's kind of funny when you're making a pre-roll, you know, something like this, top is folded, not twisted, which is we're seeing more and more commonly. Everyone used to twist the tops, but it takes so long when you're in a big production area or just set up, sitting there twisting. So now the tops are folded typically. And each of these pre-rolls, like a number of times, it gets weighed. So use something called a sealed scale. The scale actually is inspected by the state. And yeah, the scale is going to end up being your best friend because you use it so much.
Yeah, the scale, which is perfect, which Amber said. I think compliance, obviously, it's different from state to state. Here in Washington State, everything has to be labeled. So no matter if you're working with a source product, you have to have a barcode associated with that source product if it's not individually labeled, right? So, you know, from sourcing it, it has to have a label on it. Each 5 pounds has a label. There is constantly someone doing compliance. So there is, like, you know, you might be a production assistant, but it's really great to be well-versed in a lot of the basic compliance issues that you're going on with that state and the laws to make sure, because at any point in time, you can have an inspection. In Washington State, we have the Liquor and Cannabis Board can come and do a site inspection without notice. And so if you have some things that are, you know, not properly labeled, or, you know, some things going on, you can get a violation. So it's really, really important that you obviously are having compliance. That's kind of like one of the biggest things that we have going on here, is just making sure you're in compliance with the state laws and that you have everything properly labeled as well, especially if you're working with edibles. You're making sure stuff is properly labeled. You're making sure your measurements are proper as well. You make sure things are weighed right. You know, I remember one time one of our scales was a little off, and we found out we were giving people more than, you know, what they should have been getting, right? And so making sure that your scales are always calibrated, making sure that your compliance, you're always doing audits and checks and things like that.
Thank you, Joy and Amber. As any of you who have been in our past sessions knows that there's a reason we began our modules. Our first module covered compliance, and it's because compliance touches absolutely every other part of the industry. So yeah, if you're looking to join the cannabis sector in any way, shape, or form, even if it's entrepreneurially, compliance is going to be one of the biggest things you need to make sure you understand.
I just
Okay.
wanted to interject really quickly, Sammy. For those of you who did not join us for our first session, which was the module on compliance, it is on our website on the CannaCareers page. The entire session is recorded, so it's there for free. We also have, for each session, we do an accompanying one-sheeter of like resume words you should use if you're interested in that sector, highlights about that sector. So that's also free and downloadable on our website. So it's never too late to catch up on your compliance knowledge. But like Joy said, it is very, very much dependent on your state. So once again, it's just general guidelines and things you should be thinking about as you're interested or learning more about compliance. So it is on our site. Just wanted to let you guys know that.
Thank you for sharing, Lo, because you know me, I probably would have forgotten. So we are talking now about the qualifications for a production assistant, including a high school diploma or equivalent, some background experience in food production, work, manufacturing, or other related fields. Do we have any other related fields that, or like transferable skills from other jobs that might be helpful for a person that might be interested in applying as a production assistant?
Really,
Go ahead.
oh yeah, I was gonna say, really any kind of repetitive line type of work. Most of the production assistant manufacturing type of jobs are very repetitive, making joints, packaging flour. You often might end up labeling packaging, whatever it may be, very competitive, repetitive work. So can get a bit mundane, but for some folks, you know, me, I'm a creative person. So me doing the same thing over and over again would kind of, you know, not a good fit for someone like me, but some people really excel at it and love it and find success in that and end up really just moving up the chain from there because they like being organized and have and also have attention to detail, like some of these qualifications here listed are really important in particular because when you are manufacturing, you do have to constantly document things like they're mentioning, talking about compliance. That's really the key to having a successful manufacturing operation is compliance. So constant documenting of things, being very organized, making sure that your documentation is clear and communicative so that the information is being transferred properly and attention to detail. So if you like those things, you'll most likely excel in manufacturing.
Joy, did you also have something to add?
I was actually going to say the exact same thing. Repetitive motion, right? Like making joints, repetitive motion. Amber said it best. And I think one of the things that we really look for is someone who's like attention to detail and super organized and can follow instructions, right? Who can do it how you tell them how this is how it's done and can follow into a system and not, you know, say, well, this is how I've been doing it. It's very different to go from, you know, rolling a joint at home than having to do it in a manufacturing plant. So it's very, very different.
Yeah, and I would assume that also just comfortability learning new machinery, new technology is probably super useful here because, you know, the cannabis industry is evolving every day, and so are the machines and the mechanisms by which we produce our final product. So being skilled at learning how to operate those types of machinery is probably also a helpful skill set to have here.
Yeah, and also if you know how to fix machines, you'll end up being the most important person in the place.
Oh man, so you don't want somebody like me with 2 left thumbs. All righty. So our next job, I guess, title is packaging associate. For the packaging associate, this is the person that is actively packaging the infused products and plant material with proper labeling, making sure that state regulations, again, compliance is being followed. Here, I think here's another place where the scales are going to be really, really important, and knowing how to calibrate and use those scales properly so that you're getting a correct and accurate reading. Anything else here that we want to discuss in terms of possible duties that a packaging associate might have that might be different from the production?
Yeah, this position is super important. And the reason why is because when you're packaging the product, you're one of the last people to package that product and to see it before it hits the customer. So, you know, having that attention to detail, making sure that it's something that, you know, it follows all the standards, all the guidelines that your company's trying to abide by. It's a really, really important job. You know, some people might think, oh, you're just, you know, putting the cannabis in a jar and sending it off. But, you know, it's really not that. You're actually making sure it's weighed properly, making sure it looks good in the package, making sure the label's on correctly, making sure the top's on tight and sealed correctly. Like, it's a very, very important job, and attention to detail is really up there for this position.
Yeah, I agree 100% with Joy. So one of our products is Red Congolese. It's a top shelf eighth. It usually retails in the dispensary for $60. And the whole company and the brand depends on our packaging people making sure that the eighths in the jars look great. So they're responsible for cutting down the bud to a certain size so that it fills the jar up and looks nice on the shelf. You know, a lot of companies, I wish I had some examples around, will sell these little buds. You know, that is not this brand. Like, we do very big buds, and it's a lot of training that goes around that. Like, what size bud is going to end up being close to 3.5 grams. And what does that look like? And then what's acceptable? How many small buds are too many? So we train our folks on that. And at the end of the day, you know, we're delivering a top shelf eighth to the customer. So we got to make sure it looks fantastic. And so, yeah, there's a lot of quality control, quality assurance that goes into kind of that final part, the quality control, and making sure that our folks know what's acceptable and meeting a customer's expectations.
Thank you guys. We have a question from Anne. Do packaging associates assist and receive training in inventory at all?
Yes. Reason being is a lot of the packaging associates, sometimes they're doing some light metric work. You know, they're doing record keeping, kind of like we were talking about before, or not keeping, but updating records to metric. So, and you've got to understand how to use metric. You've got to understand how to put in the correct inputs, which a lot of times a supervisor will end up doing. But hey, sometimes the supervisor's not around all the time. And if you're trying to be the best at your job and continue to excel and move forward and not stay in the same position, you're definitely going to want to study up on those things so that you can continue to advance. So metric is also something that we train our workforce development cohort on, as well as manufacturing, because it is so crucial to the process.
For anyone who does not know, Metric is a seed to sale software. Joy, Amber, do you guys want to share with us what Metric is? What a seed to sale software is?
Yeah, so we use a thing called GrowFlow here in Washington State, and I believe they're in California. They're in other states too as well. And so basically, you know, you track whatever plant that you're actually propagating and growing, all the way to when you sell it to the retailer or dispensary. And so you're tracking it from the wet weight to the dry weight to, what type of A grade, B grade, is it trim material, is it extraction material? And then when you get it to manufacture, you're tracking it from how much, what's your loss, how much, weight is going in per unit, whether you're selling an eighth or whether you're selling a pre-roll or a 5-pack or whatever you're transferring that source material into, you're having to track it all the way from wherever you get it, wherever you start it, whether it's a seed or you're getting it as you're buying it because you're a processor, so you're getting it as a source material, and then to the retailer, the dispensary, and you're having to track that strain, you're having to track the weight of the flower, you're having to track the THC content, CBD, you're getting it tested, finding out what those levels are, pesticide testing, it's tracking everything from start to finish. Yeah, I know it's probably different in California, but that's the software that we use here.
Okay, cool. If we're talking about needing to have skills that are congruent with using systems like Metric and GrowFlower, what other industries do we see similar, I guess, tracking mechanisms or tracking softwares that are using these kinds of tracking softwares that might be a place where transferable skills might come into play?
Definitely in pharmaceuticals. For instance, if you're a pharmacy technician or if you work in a hospital, whenever you're checking out medication, it uses the same kind of track and trace system, almost identical. So yeah, highly regulated industries, you'll see these track and trace systems. Also, in the new industry that's coming about, psilocybin in Oregon, they've got a contract now with Metric. So they'll be also using the same exact track and trace system that cannabis uses, at least here in California and a lot of other states. Metric.
Cool. So it's also possible that working in the cannabis manufacturing sector might open up an opportunity to work in a psychedelics manufacturing industry later on down the line.
Most definitely will. Most definitely.
Very, very cool. I did not know that. That is very interesting to note. Okay, let me move on to the next slide, which is just the qualifications, which are similar to the ones that we had discussed for the production assistant. Once again, attention to detail and experience in manufacturing or food production or other related fields, like Amber had mentioned, pharmaceuticals. Anything else I see here that we're also, once again, talking about general computer operating systems and applications, including Excel, which I'm assuming some folks probably also use Google Sheets. Google Sheets functions very similarly to Excel. So if you are cool with Google Sheets, you're probably cool here. Is there anything else that a packaging associate might need in terms of qualifications that a production assistant wouldn't necessarily?
I think it's also a point to note that a lot of the cannabis companies are such in infancy stages. Some of them have been operating, 5-7 years, a long time. Some people in the medical industry for longer times, but also that a lot of people wear a lot of different hats. So, even though you might be labeled as a packaging associate, you might be getting training for a bunch of different things. So your skill set is really, really transferable in the industry. Because you might wear a lot of different hats. For example, the people who work on our farm who also help propagate and cultivate some of the cannabis, they also work in our manufacturing side. So they're getting skills from outdoor drying, bag tagging, and then to inside, as well as a lot of these manufacturing positions as well. And that's just because we're definitely like a smaller entity where a lot of people wear different hats as well. So I just wanted to point that out.
That is a really good point to make. Thank you for sharing that, Joy. So if you are looking to start a career in manufacturing in cannabis, you can expect to have a flexible job description and job duties. Okay, moving on to a production supervisor. So this is like the step up, I'm guessing, on the career trajectory path. So we have a list of duties here. Follow current good manufacturing practices. Does anybody want to talk briefly about what that might be for those of us who don't know? Amber, Joy?
Yeah, follow current good manufacturing practices. I mean, basically, like Joy mentioned before, being able to follow directions and standard operating procedures is so critical and so important. You know, these practices and SOPs are in place for a reason, and typically it's because of this is fitting into a much larger piece of an overall goal, and being able to follow directions to the T is really important.
Okay, we also have a shared document from Anne in our chat. I believe it looks like a document or an article from the FDA about pharmaceutical quality resources, current good manufacturing practice regulations. I see. So this is something that the regulatory bodies here manage, I guess, or release or share with us that we follow as an industry. Okay, thank you, Anne. Thank you, Amber. Our next, sorry, Joy, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was also, were we staying on this slide, or were we going to stay on this slide? Because I had something to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry. And I think also too, the production supervisor duties is super, super important, because they also have to hit certain numbers and goals in terms of how many products need to be produced that day, right? What are efficiency models? You know, looking at it from like a data perspective, well, how many 8s did we produce this day, and how many people, like what's the sweet number for efficiency models, and you know, how many joints did we able to produce today, or pre-rolls. Looking at, we like our production manager to look at it very data oriented, and so like being able to use Excel sheets, being able to data input, so we can see, okay, what's the efficiency rate on this, because a lot of the stuff that we're using is less automation. Some of it's semi-automation. It's very labor intensive and hands and movement. And so being able to look at, you know, what's the right combination? Should we be doing 8s all one day? Should we be doing pre-rolls all one day? Are we missing out on time because we're switching over staff from doing a different product to this product? And so very data oriented on this piece.
I see. Okay, cool. Thank you. I see here like the 3rd and 4th bullet points for the duties on this list. Establish clear goals and metrics for the team and develop targets for safety, quality, delivery, cost, and productivity. So it sounds like Joy covered those guys. I wanted to talk a little bit about how a production supervisor's duties, and even the other roles that we covered in manufacturing, how those duties map over to Infusion specifically, because we've been talking a little bit about the production of like Jay's using joint machines and the packaging of the actual flower product, but what about on the Infusion side of things? What can these roles expect if they're coming into an Infusion manufacturer?
Yeah, are you speaking about like different types of cannabis oil or edibles?
Yeah, I'm talking about how we infuse things as at the manufacturing level, as opposed to like me and my slow cooker.
Right. No, absolutely. I think the first thing is safety, right? Because you're going to be using different machinery and different type of lab equipment that, you know, is hazardous and inflammable sometimes, right? You're going to be using these big types of machineries that could be potentially like Eden Labs machine, right? Where you're processing material and you're infusing different products, or you're making edibles, right? So you need to be able to have a food handler's permit. So I think the first one is definitely safety. The second piece is safety on a number of standards, making sure you're not blowing anything up, but also the safety of the product too. Making sure that your formulas are correct in terms of being able to produce and process the types of milligrams that you're infusing in these different edibles.
Right, so your labels are correct, right?
Labels are correct. Your compliance is correct. You're going to get them tested, but if you mess up a whole batch, that's a lot of money. Those batches are a lot of money. Okay, so making sure that labels are correct, making sure that you're infusing the right milligrams to the different types of products that you're infusing, whether it might be a brownie or it might be an edible, it might be a gumdrop or a gummy, mints. I mean, you name it, you can infuse it, right? So making sure that that's safety's on point, making sure your labels are correct as well, making sure you have the proper equipment, that it's calibrated, and also that you have a very, very clean environment, especially if you're processing food that people are going to consume through their body, making sure that your space meets all the safety standards for the state in terms of food processing.
Yeah, Joy made some really good points. Just want to add a couple. Most likely if you're doing infusions, sure, you could be infusing joints or pre-rolls, but most likely the other types of infusions would be edibles. So you're going to be working in something of a kitchen environment. So just keep that in mind, that kitchens, especially when you're cooking, it gets warm, could be hot. You're standing on something like a tile floor because it's food grade facility. So you'll be standing for long periods of time. So you might want to invest in something like Crocs. You're also end up most likely with bigger manufacturers you're cooking from. Your inputs are concentrates, not so much flour. And concentrates are really expensive. Like Joy mentioned, when you mess up a batch, especially at a production level, it's going to be really expensive. And definitely something you don't want to do. But just keep in mind that there's a good chance if you are working in edible production and infusions, that it is probably going to be something like a kitchen environment, unless it's a very big manufacturer.
Okay, thank you, Amber and Joy.
I'd like to interject one more time, Sam, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Amber, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit because I think it's amazing what you guys are doing in Oakland. And I think it's the perfect segue to talk about the importance of why and the environment you're providing. I think it's through the Equity Kitchen. I hope I'm not mislabeling it, but I think it's perfect to talk about that at this point, because that's exactly the environment that you're providing to so many people who probably couldn't afford to make sure that it's state regulated, that it's meeting compliance and conditions. So could you expand a little bit on that work?
Yeah, definitely. So I operate a shared social equity manufacturing kitchen. It's about 1,500 square feet. So what we've done is we basically provided a compliant space, and then the city of Oakland pays for the space and also pays me as a consultant to help people navigate the process. So
as they should. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. But that's all due to the advocates in the space really constantly putting Oakland, the city of Oakland's feet to the fire and pushing them to do more. So advocacy is very, very, very important in moving the needle and getting things done. So we are not only training the social equity operators on how to use this equipment and how to use the equipment to make their products, but also the workforce development cohort is now coming in and supporting the workers throughout this whole, I'm sorry, not the workers, but the operators throughout this whole process. So it's very much a kitchen environment. It's like a really big kitchen and then a couple of other different rooms. There's a packaging room. There's a room for secured storage. There's a dishwashing type of room. And there's an office with more storage. And then there's a big hallway and kind of an area for lockers and things like that in the entry. So it's a kitchen environment. It can get hot when all of the kettles and things are on, and people are infusing and making products. Some of the equipment that we have in there, we have really big kettle that sits underneath a big exhaust, basically, and it's kind of like it lets off a bunch of steam, but that's how folks create different things like tinctures, gummies get made in this big kettle, also infused honey, topicals, lots of things are made in these kettles. We also have some induction cookers. So they're burners that can be placed in there. And the reason why we did this versus having like a big stove is because we didn't want the fire department giving us all kinds of crap. And then we would have had to get a different kind of hood and all this stuff. So there's a lot of pros to using induction cooking versus having open flames in your facility. So we've got a bunch of induction cookers. We have a really big mixer that's almost as tall as me. And it's for mixing different batches of stuff. We have a few piston type fillers to fill up things like pouches of the honey, little jars of topicals, tinctures, things of that nature. We have a little pill press that makes mints. We have guitar cutter. It's a bunch of wires. It's a really wide cutter, and you pull it down, and it's used for cutting jellies as well as caramels. So all these different types of equipment are what folks are trained on. Some folks maybe have used it in other industries because it is pretty much food equipment, and things that you'll definitely use or run into if you are working in an edibles or for an edibles manufacturer in cannabis.
Very cool. Thank you, Amber. We have a question from one of our attendees. Will you be accepting new applicants and businesses to work in your equity kitchen, and how can we learn more?
Yes. So this cohort that's currently going is going to be in the kitchen until January 2022. And then after that, Supernova actually takes over. So Supernova won a grant to buy a building from the city of Oakland, which was a really big deal. And we bought a manufacturing facility in East Oakland. It used to be owned by one of the biggest manufacturers in California, a company named Corova. And we're basically taking over that building and turning it into a training center. So we'll be incubating a bunch of operators, but also running a workforce development program and an apprenticeship program in partnership with a number of different community colleges in the Bay Area. So it's going to be a really exciting thing. We'll most likely be taking new applicants for that at the beginning of next year, beginning to first, second quarter next year. It's obviously a really big undertaking. The building's over 5,000 square feet, so it's a pretty big building. But it's got a lot of capabilities. We're really excited to be running. This is going to be like the first social equity training center in the country.
Amazing.
And
how do our attendees learn more?
Just follow Supernova. I'm sure Woke will probably repost some stuff.
I was going to say, we did list when you guys did have when you were accepting applications, as Sammy mentioned, it was listed on the CannaCareers site as an external resource. So we'll definitely keep our eyes peeled to the streets for you all and list it on our website as well as on Instagram to let you guys know when the cohort is accepting more applications. So thank you for expounding. And I hope everyone understands the importance and the awesomeness that is, because I'm sure one piece of equipment is like a mortgage, if not more. So the fact that you're buying all of these, you know, that you got the funding to purchase all of these equipment, to house it in one location, and to provide that space and that opportunity to communities of color, to people of color, is amazing. So we will definitely keep you guys updated on when and how you can support Supernova Women, the kitchen, and all that good stuff. So Thank you so much again.
Awesome. Okay, I know we got a little bit we got a little bit off track, but we did have one last question about production supervisors specifically, and that production was will production supervisors also participate in regular audits and inspections?
Yes.
Resounding yes.
Yes, my allergies are killing me right now.
Oh, no.
But no, so I was rubbing my eye, but no, I wasn't crying because I was like, yes, they are. But no, absolutely. You know, a production supervisor sometimes will be doing their own audits on stuff to make sure that the inventory is matching up with the labeling and the system and what that looks like. But yes, they will be involved with inventory and audits and compliance.
Okay,
yeah,
so
I just had a manufacturing inspection, and our production manager led the inspection. You know, so state comes in, they want to talk to the owners, and then they also want to talk to the compliance person, or the supervisor, basically. So they're standing right there with the owners and getting the reports and handing over all the files, because, you know, they come, the inspector comes in there with a list, and they just go down the list. Where's this? Where's this? Where's this? Where's this? And, you know, if you're the owner, like me, I'm not in there every day, right, doing all the tracking. So I'm like really heavily leaning on my production manager that they're following all of our SOPs and they know what's going on. So of course, like, I have a clue as to what's going on, but I'm not in there in the day-to-day. That's not my job. You know, I'm doing a bunch of stuff. So the production supervisor is really, really, really important.
Well, thank you for that question, and thank you for the answer, guys. I'm going to move on to the qualifications. These qualifications look a little bit different than the production assistant and the the associate as well. You see here that we need some additional degrees and some relevant experience in a highly regulated industry. We discussed some of those highly regulated industries before, including pharma. I know that the alcohol industry is extremely highly regulated as well. Is that something that might map over here? Like if somebody does, I don't know, product development or product testing for an alcohol company, like a beverage company? Sorry, that was a question I was posing.
Yes, there's a lot of similarities with purity with alcohol manufacturing, because you're working with chemicals, you're working with highly inflammable things. You also have to think about like safety. It's really interesting. Our production supervisor manager, who's now running our ship, came from alcohol background, and then also manufacturing batteries and assembling those. And so two, you know, highly flammable different types of products where, you know, you can hurt yourself, obviously battery with, you know, having all those chemicals, and then alcohol as well. And so he actually helped us, you know, figure out certain safety standards and measures that we should be going by, and how to do it safely and properly, and brought that experience as well. So that was super, super helpful. So there's a lot of parity there.
Thank you, Joy. Amber, is there anything that you want to add that you specifically look for when you're talking about a production supervisor or manager?
No, I don't think so. Really, just kind of the things we talked about before, being very detail oriented, and being able to follow directions, as well as being a great communicator. All those things are really important.
I see here that the last qualification listed here on this slide is experience with project management. Project management being, well, managing the schedule and the pieces that go into the actual creation of something. So seeing a process from start to finish and making sure that things happen on time, that you're delegating to the right people, that all tasks that are involved in this very lengthy process are being accomplished when they need to be accomplished so that the process moves smoothly. That's also something that a production supervisor needs to have some skills in.
Yeah, and critical. Being on time is really important because that translates to sales. And often you get these really big orders. You will obviously want to make sure that they're on time. The dispensaries don't like things being late. So that's critical.
I was going to say that's a project, in terms of project management, the reason that it's so important to make sure that each step of the process happens at a very specific time is because normally one step in the process directly affects the next step or the next 3 or 4 steps. So if there's a delay here at the beginning, everything else gets pushed back too. So yeah, that's an important thing to consider. We are moving on to our final stage or job title that we're going to be covering today. That's Director of Production. The Director of Production is the person that's overseeing the entire production process at large. So yeah, Amber, Joy, what makes the Director of Production different from our production supervisor or manager?
I think one thing is this person most likely is doing a lot of reporting to the owners. And so because they're overseeing, because they're the Director of Production, they're probably doing a lot of like reports like, hey, this is how much we produce today. This is what's going on. They're giving more of those overall reports, and they also are kind of like the point guard, right? I'm talking basketball terms because I love basketball, but they're like should be the extension of like the operations person and the owner they have a lot of responsibility, right? Day to day, because it falls on them to make sure that everything is going well, that the testing, that things are getting tested, that the operation is running very smoothly, that the metrics are getting hit, hit on point. And so they're really giving a lot of the overall reporting. They're also probably the more person that does a little bit of the bigger vision. So they're probably the person that creates, not probably, but they are the person that creates and says, okay, we've been producing it this way. Can we try and take off maybe this point of contact for the production line to be more efficient? Or can we move, this room and change it from possibly our where we're assembling things, can we move it over here so it's a seamless line to where then we can put it into inventory or our storage room? So they're more also as the bigger person to figure out those better efficiency models and giving out more of the reporting to the owners and the operations person.
Yeah, Joy said it really well there. That's what I was going to get into. I call this person is my Chief Operations Officer. So this is my COO in this position. And this person has an incredible amount of responsibility. I feel sorry for them. But they do exactly what Joy has just mentioned. This is the person that I'm leaning on to help me run a leaner operation. Not just leaner, not necessarily leaner, but much more efficient. So they're assessing everything. They're constantly looking at our production numbers and seeing if things fluctuate, why, how can we have less touches? How can we increase our efficiency? What piece of equipment can we add to save us some money? And how can we increase our output? Like these are all the questions that I have. They're also constantly updating the SOPs, making them better. This is the person that I'm looking to make our operation more efficient. So this is the person that has the authority to be able to look at our SOPs and make changes. This is the person that that is looking for new equipment. This is that person. So they're really in
You're managing how you produce.
Yes. So this is, they're in touch with the production manager. They're the ones constantly having daily conversations and figuring out pain points and things of that nature.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both. Now we're going to move on to the qualifications. So these are the qualifications that we have listed here. They're similar to the qualification that we were talking about before. This one, here we have listed culinary arts and expertise working within a cannabis kitchen, like Amber was describing. But this seems to focus more on culinary and kitchen management than the other roles did.
Yeah, my COO actually has an events background.
So what other backgrounds would be possible?
A huge event, and reason being is because they've got, events are chaos. There's a lot of things happening at once. They've got to pull a lot of things together, manage a lot of different people. They're on a very tight timeline typically. They have to be able to think very quickly on their feet when things go wrong. They have to be able to communicate extremely well. So I like events people. I think they're some of the most versatile people that can adapt to different situations really, really effectively. So if you've got an events background, you'll probably do well in this type of director environment.
Anything to add? I know that you are also in the COO role for the Hollingsworth Cannabis Company.
I'm looking at everything, and Amber says I feel sorry for myself too. And I'm like, man, but I think one of the things is always having like some type of sense of urgency, but not quick, but not like too fast, right? Like just looking for someone who just
quick but not hasty.
Exactly. Sense of urgency, can get stuff really done super fast. I have ADHD, so I like to bounce around super fast on stuff. And so I love things constantly moving at different points in time. And so someone who can adapt to things changing very quickly as well, but being able to handle that situation under pressure, because it's a lot of pressure at large points of times, and people who can thrive in that is key.
Okay. So now's the part of the presentation that we start to talk about how you actually get a job in manufacturing. We keep our advice for like resumes and cover letters and interview skills and stuff like that relatively the same. But if there's anything that you guys, Amber or Joy, would like to add specifically about, I guess, where you can find some of these manufacturing jobs, if we're talking about when we're applying, what we should focus on in terms of our experience on our resume, or any advice along those lines, could you please share with us?
Yeah, talking a lot about some of the things that we're really illustrating a few minutes ago, having attention to detail, like pointing those things out, having understanding how to follow processes would be important, and really highlighting on your resume. If you have a food handler certificate, that's a big plus. If you're applying for something like a production assistant, talking about how you don't mind doing repetitive processes is really important. Not being on your cell phone is really important. I know that's not something that you might put in a resume, but hey, if you make it to the interview, that's important. Like seriously. Just mentioning that you're very focused on processes and making sure that things are streamlined and that they work how the company wants them to. Those things are really important to hit.
Yeah, and sometimes pointing out too on your resume that like willingness to learn new things, being open. I think that's like a huge thing, because sometimes people don't want someone coming in thinking that they know everything, that they're open to learning like new things with your company.
I think that we have a question from Danielle who'd like to add something or something to add, has something to add.
Yeah, hey everybody. I help with resume reviews, and through THC staffing, I've seen over 10,000 resumes since we started the company in 2014. And this is an interesting sector to think about. So Amber said in your resume and somewhere in your application, you want to emphasize attention to detail. Well, you want to also show proof of your attention to detail. If your resume has typos or formatting issues or any superficial things like that, that's could be a red flag when you're applying for a job that requires attention to detail. Or since it's production and project management, you want to show that by making sure your resume, that your experience is listed in time order appropriately and things like that. So there's sometimes when your resume is not so important, like the appearance of it and the format that I'm speaking about. But in my opinion, it's always important. It's always important to have it spell checked and in the right format and in the right order. But there's times when it's particularly important, because you can say you have attention to detail, but if I can see from your resume that you don't, right? It's a reflection of of that. So always, get as many opinions as you can on your resume. Figure out the technical parts that you need to figure out to make sure you can spell check it and put it in the PDF format. And all of those things that might seem superficial are really, really important. So I just thought in this context, I wanted to add that, because I see that a lot where somebody will say attention to detail or strong project management or strong communication, but how do you reflect that in your presentation of your application?
Of course, thank you for that advice, Danielle. That's really, really good advice. I mean, those are quite literally details that you're supposed to be paying attention to. So yeah. Our usual advice: keep it objective, list your relevant experience only. In this case, the different types of transferable skills that we've been discussing during this presentation with Amber and Joy, those would be, your relevant experience. Update memberships and classes that you've taken. Use your list of skills to find matching keywords to include in your resume. You can also, of course, use keywords that you find in the job description itself. Let's see. We have some some examples of resume keywords here, things that you'll want to pepper in somewhere on your resume, hopefully. Okay. Your cover letter. This would be a really good place to talk about your attention to detail, your desire and flexibility in learning new skills, and things like that, things that don't normally go on a resume. You don't want your resume to be 10 pages long. Nobody's going to read a 10-page resume, I promise. Okay. This is, oh, so sorry. It looks like we have another question from the audience. Oh, I see. I have a list of keywords to suggest here in the chat if anybody's interested. It's a very, very long list. Thank you, Anne, of other keywords that you might want to include, be on the lookout for, or might be useful to you. Again, that's in the chat, everyone.
And about keywords, you can't just list them if you don't have experience with them or don't know what they mean or how to talk about them. I also see a lot of that where somebody will start that process of like putting the keywords or the job title, but then the resume itself doesn't match.
Yeah.
So don't list them unless you're prepared to back that up with some demonstrable knowledge.
And Danielle's absolutely 100% correct. Don't ever do that, because the person you're interviewing with, they're going to ask you those questions. And if you sound clueless, it's a wrap.
Wow. I don't think my anxiety would let me list something on my resume that I was going to be asked about later that I didn't understand or know. but
Surprise.
wow, that is gutsy. All right. Well, some of our interviewing and negotiating tips include researching the employer ahead of time. It always pays to know who you're trying to get a job with. I would, again, think that's common sense, but I guess not. Try to schedule interviews in order of the job you want the least to the one you want the most. It means it gives you the opportunity to practice, guys, especially if you might be switching from a different industry to a new one, in this case from outside of the cannabis industry to the cannabis industry. It would be a good idea to get some practice in this industry and in this context and with this jargon specifically. For negotiating, our advice is to ask for a slightly higher salary than you want. It gives you room to negotiate down. Plan ahead and practice out loud. You can do that with yourself like I like to do, or you can do that with somebody else. Make sure you bring your questions, minimum requirements, and all of those things that you want to make sure that you're covering during the interview and that you mentioned during the interview. Bring them written down so that you remember to discuss them, and bring extra copies of your resume. Any other interviewing or negotiating tips to share, Amber or Joy?
Definitely. I see bring your questions. That's pretty important. I would definitely make sure to ask at least one question. From the first bullet, researching the employer, asking questions. Yeah, definitely do some research and come with at minimum one question.
What kinds of questions do you guys like to hear? What are your favorite questions that you get?
I don't really have any favorite questions. I do like it when people ask about the history of the company, why we decided to do what we're doing, what do we see in the future. It just makes me think that this person's actually interested in the company and where we're going.
Yeah, I like to also hear when someone asks, what is your ideal candidate for this position? Like, what do you see as, someone, what are you looking for, right? Really like that question. And then like also Amber said, when they want to hear where you're trying to go in the company and how they fit in that model, right? Like how they see themselves being able to get you to the next level. Love when people talk about, well, this is what I can bring to the table to get you to, that goal for the overall company.
Those are two really, really good pieces of advice. I'm actually going to remember those. All righty. Okay. So this last portion that we're discussing is for once you've gotten the job. Even if you do your research on a company, sometimes the work environment may still not be a fit for you, and you might have to do some navigating in terms of dealing with not only working with people who might be hostile towards you or who might be using microaggressions with you. Navigating hostile work environments is just something that pops up occasionally and something that's good to know and be prepared for. So the first step is to know your rights, know, how cannabis companies are supposed to be treating their employees, know when to seek legal help. You can, of course, always ask organizations like Woke. We are here to provide those kinds of resources to help guide you to those kinds of resources that we ourselves have found over time or that we are connected to. But also, doing your own research and asking around yourself. Know what's in your employee handbook. Once you have gotten the job, make sure that you review that employee handbook and know what is in there in terms of what you're protected from, how you escalate those issues within the company that you're working for and stuff like that, and seek community and resources, which again, I'm going to plug Woke here because we are trying to create community and resources collectively in our space, but there's many, many other organizations such as Supernova Women who are creating those resources for us as well. So yeah, is there anything else that anyone would like to add in terms of navigating work environments? It's okay if the answer that's no.
I always say that's a whole session.
It is, and it's very, very complex.
And we're not, we're trying to be realistic that, hopefully you'll find a company and be in a position that feels really good, and you can feel, you can look forward to going to work, and it's feels like a safe space for you. But I'm pretty sure that, most of us who are here today, who are participating, either in speaking or helping this keep this program going, it's because we've had challenges, and we want to share our knowledge to help other people who are either new to the industry or trying to move up in the industry, that this is a common problem. It's not unique to cannabis, and that's why we're here and doing what we're doing, is to make it better and to be a resource for when things go wrong.
Yep, and hopefully to help figure out the places where things go right, to help highlight and uplift those places that are owned by our BIPOC community fellows, by the people who are committed to creating those safe and diverse spaces for us. So yeah, that's it in terms of slides for the presentation. We do.
Can I add a few things?
Absolutely, please feel free.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a bit about the industry. Cannabis itself, obviously, as everybody knows, it's a newly regulated industry. A lot of these, well, not a lot, but some of these operators are learning the ropes. Most cannabis companies are small, and folks are going through a lot of growth and learning along the way. So, some of these folks that are running companies have not run companies before. Some of these folks have. You're gonna see a big variance in the types of cannabis companies and operations. So obviously, you're gonna want to do your own research, as we just talked about before going into that company, making sure it's a right fit for you. Lots of these folks are raggedy, honestly. And you don't want to end up with some of these raggedy companies. And you can tell by the benefits that they're offering the employees. That's one good indicator to start right off the jump. Are they offering you PTO or vacation pay? Are they do you have health insurance? Are they starting at a decent wage? Do your homework and make sure you're not getting into a raggedy or bad situation. Make sure the company's diverse. Make sure that the company, read that employee manual. That should be part of what you're doing. If the company that you're joining doesn't have those kinds of things, that's a red flag. You go to start working somewhere, we don't have a company manual. Goodbye. There's things that you got to do before, as a company, before taking on employees. It shows that you're ready to handle this, what you're about to do. And if they don't have those things, like, hey, you're going to want to wait until they get themselves together. Because if they don't have themselves together, they're not going to know how to manage you or the rest of the company. So do your own homework too before you decide to jump into employment, because all of us have worked for terrible employers in the past, and that can be very traumatic. And, you're looking to set yourself up for success. So if you do decide to go to work for someone raggedy, just have that expectation that they are raggedy and have your exit strategy.
I had a question. So I know you guys mentioned that it's definitely a benefit to have a food safety or food handling license. Are there any other certifications one should obtain along with food safety to set yourself apart from the crowd?
Sure. There's a few cannabis programs that are offering certifications. Now, can I recommend one? I don't know yet. I'm going to defer to Danielle on that, because there are some schools out there, right, that offer training that are legacy, but I can't necessarily recommend, but there are folks that are out there that offer training that is helpful and that will be helpful to you and when seeking out a job in cannabis. And you know, some of the information that they're giving to you is definitely going to be very useful. So I would look into those things.
Thank you. And we appreciate your answer because we feel the same way. We don't have a plethora of external resources listed on our CannaCareers page for that very reason. It is very important to us that if we're recommending you to spend your time and most importantly, your money, and some of these programs are $500+, right? We want to make sure, one, you're actually learning something. Two, you can actually use it, but most importantly, that it means something to the external environment. If it means nothing, if companies aren't respecting it, if it's not something that is going to set you apart, we don't want to recommend it. If it's like Amber mentioned, a lot of these companies are small. So they will say that we have this training program and this certification, but maybe they've never had a cohort or a class of actual students, or they don't have that data that Joy indicated saying that these are how many placements we got based on, you know, the class of people who took this training. So we're doing some research for you all, like Amber said, and we encourage you to do your own. But we are in the process of meeting with and vetting some of these school-like institutions that are offering licenses and certifications. So we'll also, once again, keep you posted, and anything we do find and trust will be listed on our CannaCareers page, like Supernova Women's, you know, application
Equity
process.
first. Work equity
As well as Cannabis, I believe we had that, but that's entrepreneurial resources, which we'll get in at another date and time. But we are looking to vet these resources and to be able to provide you guys with viable options. So we'll keep you posted.
Thank you for sharing, Lo. I want to remind everybody that, as Amber has mentioned before, and as we have discussed throughout this session and other sessions prior, the cannabis industry is very, very brand new and very, very green. It's not super well developed outside of like California, really. So there is going to be a lot of movement and a lot of growth and a lot of change. And with that comes growing pains. So as others have mentioned before, doing your own research is going to be really, really important, but also some of this is going to be trial and error. So you'll see companies that will make mistakes because they are new, because they are green, readjust their direction or the way that they're doing things. So the same is going to be true for the certification programs. We're going to find out over time as these certification programs develop, because right now they're essentially reactionary to a burgeoning industry instead of having been established. So we will see over time which of these certification programs prove the most useful, and I guess which ones end up being the most widely respected industry-wise.
Can I add really quick? There are some states and some sectors that require some sort of certification, so we'll probably see more of that, like in Illinois and Massachusetts. Responsible vendor trainings are required. Illinois is an interesting example where there's over 20 companies that have been approved as state approved trainers. And so as you can imagine, there's a wide range of quality of the information that you'll get from those 20 plus organizations. And look at something like how much does it cost, you know, because if the state is looking at all of those trainers as the same, if you're going to pay more for it, look into who's teaching it. It's like any school you're looking at going to, like, it is what you make out of it, and it depends on the instructor. It depends also on your classmates, because some of these programs, one of the best things you can get out of it is the networking with your classmates and instructors. And now, not only that states are requiring these responsible vendor trainings, but that we have accredited institutions that are offering programs. So really quick note on that. When I helped create the curriculum for Oaksterdam University, that was back in 2006. That was the first cannabis college. There was no accredited cannabis curriculum. So we were the first to do it. So, you know, that original curriculum from 2006 is probably not that helpful at this point, right? But look at how much has changed, that there's a range of accredited programs. Some of them are very affordable through community colleges. And the thing I would say about those are not necessarily any better than a private and free service like what we're doing here today. This content is some of the only content like it in the space, and we're not accredited. We're a nonprofit. So you can take the accredited classes because that, you know, even if it's not that great of quality, like a lot of people will just respect it more because it was accredited. So you just have to kind of keep all of that in mind, that how much you're paying for it doesn't tell you what quality it's going to be. And that there are ways, just like you're going to research companies and jobs, you can research the training programs and stay open to things like what we're doing, which are a free resource that might be some of the best information you get. There might not be a specific way you can list a certification on your resume, but you can, the information you're learning from this will help you navigate the whole process and just learn on your own, like the kinds of things you need to know in the interview, and you'll stand out as like, oh, this person actually has some idea of what they're talking about. There's no certification to prove it, but you know, that's a work in progress. So
yeah, 100% what Danielle is mentioning. Most of these accredited programs aren't even written or vetted by actual licensed producers, manufacturers, whatever. So the content in there is just written by some person who doesn't have any experience. So you can only imagine how useful it actually is. So, and then you're paying all this money for this useless information. So, you know, resources like this is great, and produced by and created by someone who's actually in the space. So that's really important, to find resources that are credible, that are actually backed up by licensed producers.
All right. Well, I guess that if there are no more questions from the attendees or the audience, then I think that marks the end of our session. I want to thank both Amber and Joy for participating today and for sharing their time and their wisdom and their experience. I know this was really, really eventful, and it was very, very informative. So I hope everybody got all the information that they needed. If you were not able to attend, if you missed some part of the session at all, we will have the full video of today's module up on our website, woke.world/CannaCareers. We will also have the worksheet there downloadable for you all, as well as the presentation. And
I was just gonna say, Amber and Joy, can you please plug yourselves? Because we're all about creating a network and really making sure that we support you in any way that we can. So this is your opportunity. Plug yourself, plug your projects, because we like to support, and we definitely want our members to support as well.
And our attendees are very interested in keeping up and staying connected with both of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Joy, go ahead.
Hey, I really appreciate everyone. The one thing I'll take away from today is don't work for a raggedy company, in the words of him. So thank you. No raggedy company. You know, you can follow us at THC Company WA. That's on Instagram, Twitter. I'll put that in the chat box. We are having a phenomenal growing season. We kind of got a little bit late start because of COVID-19, but you know, getting all our plants in the ground and growing as well. One of our biggest projects that we're working on is the second phase to our farm. So we're going to use our skill set the last 7 years that we learned to grow cannabis to actually grow food. So we're going to be growing food in, we're going to start with 9,000 square feet, and we're going to bump that up to hopefully an acre, but we're going to be doing vertical farming, all hydroponics. So we've cleared out our cleared out a lot of the land because we see a need in the BIPOC community to access fresh produce and vegetables, and we are going to be growing food and distributing that all around the state of Washington, different greens, vegetables, access for our community. So that's the next step that we're going to be doing, and we'll have that launched by next year. It's a year project, and we are super, super excited to be able to do that. So
congratulations.
That is amazing. Congratulations. I'm an environmentalist by degree or whatever. So you just got me like, oh my God, because like my degree is literally in sustainability. So I'm the annoying friend that's like, are you gonna throw that on the floor? Like I'm the person like picking apart the recycling, like straws are not recyclable. So like, I love it. Thank you for your work.
You can follow me, breezedistro.com, Breeze Distro on Instagram, supernovawomen.com, Supernova Women on Instagram. We're launching a newish product. It was a product that we had prior to legalization, and we're going to start making it again. It's called California Roll. It's an infused pre-roll. Oil on the outside, keef on the outside, everything strain specific. So that's exciting. And yeah, we got a lot of things going on. Really excited to be really starting to launch a bunch of different products this year and really expanding the team. I'm doing a bunch of hiring. So if you are in the Bay Area and you're looking to work for a little misfit company, and I call myself misfit because we're all a bunch of POCs and queers and primarily women. So
Happy Pride.
if you are looking to work for a company like that goes against the grain, but is excellent, hit me up.
Amazing. Okay, well, thank you both. Congratulations to you both. Sounds like you both are headed for happy Pride, headed for big things. So I wanted to just thank everyone again for spending your Saturday afternoon with us and for taking the time, because I know these sessions are a little bit long and they're very information heavy. But thank you so much to everyone for joining us. Thank you to Amber and Joy for sharing their expertise. We wouldn't have been able to put on this amazing module without you both. And I hope everyone has a happy Saturday.